Hello and welcome to another episode of Weeding Through the BS. My name is John Garcia, and along with Steve Edwards, we are your hosts today, and we're joined by a very special guest, Mr. Corey Saban. Corey is an Emmy-nominated and Associate Press Award-winning journalist, and he has a tremendous story to share with us, and also share with us why stories are so important. So we are jumping right into the podcast. We had a slight technical issue at the very beginning, but we have most of it here for you, and we appreciate you checking out as we weed through the BS with Corey Saban.
So right away, it's simplistic. It's a story. Stories relate to us. They connect us, and it's a reason why you tell your kids those before they go to bed.
Yeah, as a marketer, this is the buzzword right now, the stories, right? And it's a buzzword, but it's really as old as time. And it's just kind of regenerated itself as, okay, we have to tell stories. But really, that has always been what works is the story. It's how people connect.
Do you think it's easier now to tell somebody's story because there's so much social media, or is it harder because there can be such negative aspects of social media?
It's interesting. What's great is, as you, the author, when I work with somebody, it's their story. So I have to ask the intriguing questions to pull it out of them and then create the why of what they want people to do. So if we're selling Premier Virtual, it's the why of what? Convenience and access and ease. Depends what you're selling and what message you want to get across. So for everybody, it's different. For me, it's this gift I have because I'm trained in it and I've done it so long, realizing that if I don't intrigue you in the first 5 seconds as a news reporter, you'll change that channel right away. So I've got to grab you, and I only got a few seconds to do it. So I really stress that same message to all my clients.
Okay, we go hard here with BS.
Okay, let's do it.
What about when you hear a story you know it's BS? How do you
I call them out.
Yeah.
I say, really, is that what you want people to know? Because we can simply Google this and find out that's not true.
Okay.
So what story, the key to storytelling and the key to sharing your story is one word: authenticity.
Nice.
If you're not authentic, what happens?
Yeah.
You're lying right away, and no one wants to build a relationship on a shaky foundation. It's about trust.
Yeah.
So I know you did some crisis management before.
Still do that now.
Can you say,
I'm sure there's a lot of work there.
What is the worst thing that you've ever had to overcome, right? What's that biggest issue, you call it, or challenge?
I'm not allowed to get into the specifics because
Okay.
all of the clients make me sign an NDA. However, wait a second.
You got
However, you know what the biggest issue is when you tell a client to be proactive, or a person proactive and train your team, and they say, it'll never happen to us. And then there'll be something like we saw with COVID, or sexual harassment, or DUI, or dare I say even a murder-suicide happens, or an active shooter. So the biggest hurdle for them to overcome is that no comment kills. We tried to reach John Garcia, but he had no comment. Guilty. He did it.
Yeah.
So it's put something out that really says something along the lines of, hey, this is under investigation. We're looking into it. It's our process not to get involved in ongoing investigations. We turn those over to the police department, but we'll share more as we learn. Put something out to protect your reputation and your brand.
I think you see that a little bit more often now. They're trying to, right? Alabama, right? With their football team is, right, how many things have happened recently, and now, right, the guy was doing 141 miles an hour, and they say, and every time something happens with a football player, or this is with all college sports, it's, we're not going to make a comment on that because it's an investigation that's ongoing.
It's an ongoing investigation, right. And really, you can't comment on it because you're jeopardizing the investigation. But it beats no comment.
Any stories right now you wish you were coaching some, maybe Jay Morant or some Trump stuff or some. Come on,
there's so much. Yeah. I can't even get into the politics because the game has changed. The game has changed so much, but yeah, call it for what it is. You said Patino going to St. John's. What is it? It's the money. I love when they say it's not about the money. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is always about. It's the money. Yeah, the money doesn't matter. No, it's about the money. There's so many different things in so many different industries that I work in and touch and realize that I can make a difference in. And when it comes to crisis, so often they reach out to me after it's happened instead of being proactive, and we could put something in place. So that's the part that's really a shame.
So what you're saying is every company should have a Corey Saban or the Corey Saban to kind of be proactive, because it happens with companies, it happens with college football teams, college basketball. I mean, you saw that the Miami girls, the two girls from Miami. Now they were saying something on social media because they beat Indiana.
Oh yeah,
They're the two. Is it Carvello or Car whatever? So now you got to have some kind of aspect.
Well, now if it's not, then you got in trouble, you get canceled, right? Because you said, and then that's almost too late too. You didn't have a plan in place. I know that teams kind of try to coach you through what you can and can't say, or even literally put it on a contract, right? Like,
so what I'll do is I'll work with organizations to be proactive in training and teach them baiting questions reporters are going to ask to get them to say something they don't want to say, such as
reporters do that.
Reporters do that, believe it or not. Hypotheticals. Hey, hypothetically, you knew that would have happened. What would you have done? What would you have said? You're going to go either yes or no, but the answer is we don't deal in hypotheticals, we deal in facts, because I'm going to bait you to say something, or yes or no, do you agree with, or how certain are you that it's under control? So I teach them to avoid these questions, and then I help them create a crisis plan and a crisis team so that when something does happen, it's usually when the CEO's out of town, so that they have a number 2 or a number 3 backup.
I mean, you're right, but I think people can still smell through that. Right, because politicians are the first thing I think.
Well, you think of politicians. I'm talking about companies.
Yeah.
Forget politicians in that grand scale.
I think they've made it muddy waters, though, right? I mean, the politicians answer, and then a person answers, then a corporate president, and then it sounds like a politician.
Well, if you think about it, think about big failures. If you Google best crisis scenarios for companies, it dates back to one in the 80s, and it was Tylenol. Just think about BP and the oil spill. What happened? The CEO said, "I'd just like to get my life back." Probably wasn't trained well. Let's see. Let's look at United Airlines. When they dragged the passenger off the plane and you saw him with his shirt up, and the CEO sent a tweet, "I'm sorry for having to reaccommodate this person." Certainly didn't look reaccommodated as he was being dragged down the aisle. So these are crisis fails. Yeah. So it's the idea of saying, you know what, this happened. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
It's having the plan.
How do you train for all the issues that could happen?
Yeah, boy, it depends on the industry, but you work with the basics, okay? If you have employee complaints, sexual harassment, hate speech, a lot of different things that you'll see that are common. And then there are some, frankly, you can't train for that I'll get calls on and I'll be like, that's interesting.
There's
no playbook on that one. Or somebody speculating and saying, wow, this happened, and they put it out on social media and someone bites into it and the media then calls and it turns out it's all false.
So the media is a false narrative on certain things?
At times, Steve. I know, at times. But they're only going upon what they saw. Another aspect I help people with is public speaking, because I realize that CEOs like when someone like me comes in and teaches them what their story is, but they need help delivering it. And we all know, you've seen people get up and they have a PowerPoint and they read the slides, and what happens? They lose their power and they can't make their point. Right. So I come along and help them.
Man, he's got the lines over there, man. I thought I had all the cheesy lines.
Steve's going to come back and be like, it's about losing you're having your power.
Yeah. Steve doesn't believe in scripts or PowerPoints. He's the best, just off the cuff to have it, I bet. Yeah, so he has that down. I think with Steve's coaching, though, it's the filter sometimes. Like you said, sometimes you're just so adamant, you're so passionate, right? You're speaking from the heart, but there are things that you should probably, consider, I guess, before you.
100%.
Yeah.
What are 2 things people should never talk about? Let's say 3. What are 3 things?
Politics,
I'm
religion.
throwing a softball too.
Yeah, politics, religion, and money.
Okay.
Money.
What about COVID? You think COVID is a kind of a let's say when COVID came out, you had people that were 50-50. Some said it's fake, it's not real, it's not going to affect me. And then you had other people that are, wear their rubber gloves, wear their masks, wear their suit out there. I was very adamant. Yeah, exactly. And I still, to this day, think there's 3 types of people with that COVID aspect. Is the one people that are, I'm over it. I'm going to live my life. I want nothing to do. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to do anything. I'm free. Then you have the other people that are like, I'm still going out, I'm still wearing a mask, I'm outside riding my bicycle, I'm wearing a mask, I'm at the zoo, I'm wearing a mask, I got rubber gloves on. So there's such a wide difference there. And then you have the people in the middle that are, maybe I'm still going to be protective, but I still want to live my life. How do you think a company, what do you think a company should do with something like that?
It
How
also
should they
depends.
take that?
So for me personally, you asked me, it comes down to choice. I do not wear a mask when I'm out and about every day, but if I'm on a plane and inevitably I'm always sitting by the guy that's like, and I'm like, mask on, I don't want to get sick because I'm always traveling. How should a company deal with it? It depends on your company. As you know, it's a right to work state, so you can do whatever you want. If people want to work, particularly in your industry, I think it would be hard to say you can't work remote, being what you do.
Right.
But it depends on what it is, and it also depends on so many other features. So think about the 5 generations in the workforce. I'm Gen X. I was happy to start making no money and get experience. Now you get a lot of people that want to start a CEO. And
you're open, John got excited right here.
And then you're also talking about, hey, for 2 years we could work at home, and now you're telling me that I can't work at home, but this company will let me do it. I think there comes a time and a place where I believe there's great cohesion when people are together. However, for different organizations, it's about work-life balance. And what they want is what the job market determines, frankly. If they're not going to be able to hire John because John wants 3 days or he wants flex time, and that seems to be the norm in that space, well, they're going to make some sacrifices. Just like, to use your sports analogy, hey, the guy wants a 10th year, but at that point he's going to be 42 years old. Well, we know he's too old, but we want him for like 7 good years. He'll give us.
So we'll pay the extra.
But do you think, so talking about that, you talked about, right, it's always about the money. I believe so too. But a guy like that smart. You signed, what, a 6-year deal, I think?
Who are we talking about?
Patino.
Right. Back to Patino.
So if you sign a 6-year deal, really any 5-year deal, and they fire you, you're going to get paid anyway.
Yeah.
So it's about the money, Yeah. They can all say, we want to do all this, but they know if they get fired in 3 years, they're still going to walk away with it.
Well, here's my favorite one, is the guaranteed money, but then all of a sudden after 3 years, he wins a championship, and he says, well, I want to renegotiate my deal. Or they get to the tournament, St. John's, I want to renegotiate my deal. Whenever they have that deal, and then they go out and they say, well, I want a new deal. Well, wait a second, you signed a deal. But you can make the argument, in baseball, for example, well, this player should make $30 million a year, well, the owners are making so much, etc. So you're never going to win.
Yeah.
If someone's willing to pay it, that's your worth.
I have a couple of things on that, but I want to get back to the generational thing. But I'm going to flip it. I'm going to flip it this time.
Here we go.
Because we all know that there's a certain way you need to speak to the new generation, right? I'm just going to say it. But I just read this post, which is pretty cool. It's like, how do you coach the older, more experienced person, right? Because I think that's almost taken for granted. To your point, Gen X, we just did things and it wasn't really a big deal. You speak to me however you speak to me, it's gonna either roll off my shoulders or. But so now you probably, I would say more or less, you're coaching a lot of leaders, right, and a lot of probably more experienced people. Is that how do you do that differently than you would have in the generation, and what may be easier or harder?
That's such a timely question because it came up yesterday.
Wow.
And I was working with a leader, and she was sharing with me that one of her younger colleagues was being difficult and not following instructions. I said, you have to pause for the cause. There's one for you. But it's pause for the cause, and it's, listen, ask them questions. Well, how did you feel about this assignment? Well, I did this, and this. What do you think you did well? Because I thought you did this great. Well, thank you so much. However, I was curious why you didn't ask me some questions. Well, why should I have asked you questions? Because the instructions were this. So it's a lot more hand-holding. It's a lot more listening and being empathetic. And it's just a different work environment. People, I'm hearing from different companies, some employees are feeling triggered and they leave because they're emotionally triggered or mentally triggered and they want to go. That's a word that I didn't grow up with. No. You have to adapt to it.
You'd be pissed off.
And then you get over and deal with it. But you know what? Maybe this generation is smarter than the rest of us.
Yeah, you're right.
And they're going to say, you know what? We talk about work and then we're going to retire at 65, maybe 70. Well, why can't I have work-life balance now? So maybe they're the geniuses and everybody else is wrong. but whatever works for them, but you have to coexist if you want to be successful.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in what I started doing is working with some clients and creating culture teams. So, for example, one of the places I'm just leaving now is at the club at Quail Ridge. I do some work with them. And we did some crisis management, and the GM and I were talking, and we said, let's create a culture team. What does that look like? Getting the employees outside the gates, doing something for a nonprofit to make a difference, to build camaraderie, and to create a space where they feel comfortable collaborating with one another and getting to know one another, because that leads to greater productivity inside the gates. So we tried it a few months ago, and we've been doing these activities once a month, and they love it.
Yeah.
They will run through a wall through the GM because they're doing things that they love to do, that are giving back to organizations. Today we were packing diapers for healthy mothers, healthy babies to help new moms in need. 1,300 new moms a month, depending on an organization for diapers and formula. They have them, they just can't pack them. So we were over there packing, and you heard the people from F&B talking to the maintenance people. They didn't know one another, getting to know them. They can't wait to see you in the break room. Another idea I shared is communal lunch tables in the break room, so that you have to sit together as opposed to just the four tops.
In Quail Ridge, how many employees are there?
Hundreds, about 400.
Oh, is it that big?
You work with Brian Murphy over there?
I do, and Brian was there today.
Brian's a great guy. I know his wife. So.
Yeah. Kelly and Brian was there today in the marketing team, and Brian's a big believer in the project and loves it, supports it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, Brian's a good guy.
So before, when all that stuff was a checklist on the corporate agenda, right? Now you have to be real. You have to be again, have to be, and you have to involve. Like you just say, you don't just say, hey, we're going to do this. You want to get the employees to kind of obviously give you some feedback or some things that they're interested in that they want to do.
You know, you have all these signs around you: success, positive attitude. But how often do you survey your employees? How often do you ask them what they want? Because they'll tell you what they want, and guess what? It's up to you then to be nimble. You can either say we're not going to do it or we're going to do it. But if you really want to create that positive workforce, ask them and they'll tell you. Perhaps you and your management team, if there's more than a handful, read a book together and then monthly come together and share ideas. Not because it's an Oprah book club type thing, but it's a leadership book based around concepts and ideas. And how do those resonate with you?
Oh, I just came across a book today.
Yeah, and then you get different people's perspectives. Because John obviously didn't grow up in Texas with that accent, and Steve, you clearly did not grow up.
What
in
you
New
talking
York,
about,
right?
man?
It's different perspectives, different upbringings.
Yeah,
Embrace them all.
I think that's a great thing. So when you start this, I love it that you started that. And when you start that workforce culture kind of group, you get some younger, some older, some single, some married. Right? Because my interests are different than the 30-year-old Steve interests, right? It was like, hey, let's go to happy hour and stuff like that. When I graduated college after work, right, making no money, right, didn't ask for 150 grand, but I had to say that for John. So it was different, right? Hey, let's go drinking all night. Now it's like, hey, I want to do stuff with my wife and my kids. So you kind of have that whole thing.
So what have we done so far? I'm doing this with numerous companies. We're going during the work week. Okay. For 2 hours, we've cleaned the beaches.
Okay.
We've stacked backpacks for the Education Foundation and putting together these backpacks for the kids. What did I learn? That the population, there's 20% of the kids in Palm Beach County is the population, but they're 100% of our future. If you think about it, and you think about Palm Beach County and how lucrative we are, but yet kids go to school without supplies. So we donated supplies, we packed them together, and then I said to the employees that were out there from one of the companies, there was about 25 plus, why don't you write some notes in there? And they're like, what? And I threw out some index cards, and I said, success, happiness, good luck, whatever you want to write. And that really resonated with them. Yeah. So it's every month we do a different activity, and it's based on what they'll like. I'll send them 5 ideas, they'll pick one, I'll organize it, we'll get there. We all wear a logoed shirt, and we take some pictures, and then what I'll do is I'll write an article for the newsletter that they'll put out inevitably, so I can share it with the other employees that didn't go, so on the next one they want to go.
I love that idea. I was just up at the Turtle Hospital in Jupiter
last
week, and it was like, so I told my wife, I was like, I want my kids to do something out, right? Like our church happens to do a first service Saturday, so I'm like, this morning I go, okay. She looked at all the lists of everything. I go, I want to do the beach cleanup, right? Let's get the kids out there, clean up on the beach. Like yesterday after we left there, My youngest, who's 5, goes, so every time we go to the beach, Dad, I want to bring a bag with us so I can pick up trash. And I'm like, like that's, and I think it starts there. I think it starts with young, but I want to go back to something that
Well, let me jump in real quick, because you hit the beach cleanup thing, and what about the kids that want to go out drinking? So with one of my clients, they had the beach cleanup, and the CEO of the company is walking along the beach with someone who's been there for like 6 months. Think about the access and the opportunity. And what did they talk about? Not so much picking up trash or work. They talked about life. You have a family. And that employee who's been there 6 months loved it. And guess who loved it more? The CEO. Get to know his team. Yeah. And he was like, this was amazing. I didn't think I'd like it, having to be out here at 7 a.m. to clean the beach, but it was awesome.
It's getting, right, they're getting access to this, and I think people are saying, hey, my CEO is doing this. I can wake up and get there. And I think it builds a more of a bond, right? Like, I think culture is now more than anything. What are you doing to build this? We did the St. Patty's Day parade where we took some of our team members out and we drove veterans out, right? So one of our guy, James, who was happy to be a veteran as well, led the Grand Marshal, which was a 100-year-old World War II veteran. And originally he had came to me and he was like, hey, do you want to drive him? And I was like, no, you can. And afterwards he thanked me so much that I let him drive. And he was like, that was something that was just amazing. Because, I didn't say, hey, I want to direct it. I wanted it, right? I want to lead the parade. We all know, right? I'm a little arrogant, a little cocky, and I like my face out there. But, sometimes you have to step back. Yeah. Sometimes you have to step back. And I think that's such a big thing for organizations. But I want to ask you this, because you have kids too, right?
Yeah.
Young kids are
11 and 8,
right? So similar to my age. Do you think it's, I don't want to say us as parents, right? Because we're still have young kids. But think of our parents or maybe our relatives that had these kids that are now in the workforce that are a little bit different, right? A little bit more, I don't want to say a challenge, because I think every older generation always thinks the younger generation is a problem. I don't think that way. I think, right, my generation or my parents said that I was lazy, right? That I didn't want to work because I didn't want to come to work at a chicken farm when I got out of the Army, right? We can get into that a different time, but do you think it's the parents that kind of, we'll call it baby the kids? Maybe my parents were, and both of us are older dads with younger kids, but I have a lot of friends that I was in the Army with that their kids now are, they're empty nesters, and their kids are in their 20s. Did they maybe baby their kids a little bit more because their parents were so hard on them, and it kind of created that hard times, created that soft kid, so now we're dealing with that? It was a long question.
I don't know if that's the
It's
answer.
question.
But what I do know is we live in a bubble in Palm Beach County. When I travel around the country and go to different places, it's very rare to go to Dunkin' Donuts and see Bentleys and Range Rovers and Ferraris.
Yeah.
We live in a bubble in many areas of Palm Beach County, and I tell my kids, listen, there's a lot of people that have more than us, and there's a lot of people that have less than us. It's important that we give back. So what do? Thanksgiving, we're out there with Big Heart Brigade, giving away the Thanksgiving meals bright and early in the morning. We're working with foster kids, going down there and just spend time with them at SOS Children's or whatever it is. So my kids understand the value of giving back, and they're part of an organization called Young Singers of the Palm Beaches. And what I love about that organization is they had to rehearse to get in, but as a parent, you just can't write the tuition check. You can only pay for half the tuition. The other half has to be done in community hours by the kids and the parents together. So again, it's instilling that belief of giving back. And it's do something for the community, help others out. And my kids thankfully embrace that and enjoy it. And I'll say to them, like when we give away toys for tots or whatever it is, how did you feel? In the beginning, they're like, I love that toy. Yeah. But how did you feel? Oh my goodness, it was amazing, and they loved it, etc. So I don't know if it's the upbringing, but I just think it's important to share your values and your beliefs, and those are the values and beliefs that I embody.
I love that, right? Showing your kids early on in life what it is. Like, we started to do that too, like around Christmas. Is, hey, if you're getting toys, you got to give toys away. Because there's a lot of people that aren't as needy, right? And I try to teach my kids that. It's like you said, right? There's some that have more, some that have less. But if we're fortunate enough and if we can help other people out, that's a good thing. So when at church every year they do the backpack thing. So my wife takes the kids and they help pick out all of this stuff on there to show, hey, we need to give back to something like that. So I love that you're doing that. It's such a, to me, it's you're being proactive with the kids,
Correct.
teaching them so that when they get older, it's not just all about give me. It's how can I
help?
How can I help you get back? And it sounds like you have a lot of things you do. Those are probably passionate for you.
It's funny you said
How
that.
did you choose that? Right?
That's a great question. Well, to your point about earlier, one of the employees at Quail Ridge, I said, well, how do you feel doing this? And she said, a lot of people can give financially. I can't. I can give my time.
Mm.
How great is that? How did I get into this? When I knew I was leaving TV news, I was working at ABC locally. And I was always covering murders or being there and interviewing someone after they lost a loved one. And it takes a toll on you.
Mm-hmm.
And as reporters, every day you have to pitch 3 story ideas that all have the so what factor. Why am I doing the story today? The one story that affects us all is the weather. And I just decided, I'm going to pitch stories that make a difference. For the last 6 months, I knew I wasn't staying. And I'd pitch them and they'd say, no, we're not having you do that. Go cover this. No, you got to go cover this. So I keep pitching and silently protest. And finally, they let me do some of these stories. And then, like in the last 2 months, they're like, just go. And they started calling them Corey Cares. Corey Cares. And how did it make me feel? I pitched them because it felt great to say, hey, you can help this family. Or here's what this guy did to get this, whether it's an organ donation or it's giving a toy at the holidays. So when I was thinking about all these crisis teams that I'm building in the companies, I'm saying, well, the biggest crisis is culture. It's your people. So what if we call it a crisis culture team? And then I said, hey, what the heck? Let's try it with an organization. And thankfully, one business took the leap. We had a proven model, and then I went to other businesses and said, hey, we can do this.
I mean, an organization is kind of a community, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's a microcosm of what's going on in the world.
It's your reputation and your brand and doing good.
Yeah. So
doing good is good for business.
There's no doubt that volunteering, like when I see someone volunteer for the first time, like in their church, their eyes light up. It's like you said, they couldn't give money, but they gave their time. They see the difference, and it becomes addicting. Like it just becomes, you just want to do more of it. I know I miss it when I'm not doing it a lot. I go to church by the Glaze, and we do quite a few things, and they do one for the whole city, 1 day a year. And you just see, it's an amazing cultural transformation that we all, if you've never volunteered before, you just do it. You'll get more out of it. Usually, it's another thing I take away. Like, you get more out of it than what you get.
And it's not just church. We're Jewish, and we go to temple, and they start the kids off with tzedakah. Tzedakah is all about giving back to those who don't have anything. And the kids get a little tin. I remember getting one, and you put your spare change in there. And you do that, and you bring it into the temple. Or what do? We were out gleaning in the fields as part of their Sunday school, picking up all these peppers and putting them in boxes to go to the food shelters. So the kids do firsthand work, and they get it, as opposed to, my younger ones, like, well, Dad, I know you gave me my allowance, but someone else could use it. You put the $5 in.
That's
like, wow.
That's big.
That's
So
I feel that the
I would not.
I never got that.
I just learned gleaning yesterday with that. I'd never heard that word before, and that just happened to be on my list of what my wife was saying that they did.
Fun.
And I didn't realize.
That's why they came up twice now, too.
Cross Ministries does a great program.
That they're out there and picking all this food to get people that don't have that, right? You touch bases, and I've heard this so many times, like the wealth in Palm Beach County, but also the poverty levels of what Palm Beach County has.
That's true.
It's like one of the biggest wealth disparities in the entire country, from the millionaires, billionaires to poverty level. And how can you give back to that, right? And again, there's so many different things. Just volunteering your time for anything, right? I think is such an important thing. How do you think more companies should push that, right? or are they going to get? Do you think they get some pushback from their, from their employees that hey, it's not something I want anything to do?
I think it all starts at leadership. One of the companies I admire locally is FPL. They have Power to Care Week, where the employees go out and volunteer with different organizations. They put in massive amounts of hours. Or the Breakers, they encourage their employees to go out and volunteer, and then what they do is they put together this nice book at the end, a flip book that shows their volunteer efforts, what they've done, how many lives they've touched, showing the employees pictures, their camaraderie, their productivity, what it means for the overall operation. So should somebody do it? It's not up to me to say you should do this. It's choice naturally.
Yeah.
I'm a big free will guy, but I think, and the stats are there, it makes a difference, not only for you as a leader, but for your people too.
Yeah. Do you see when you were talking about, this, you put up a newsletter, that the next month you get more people because they see it? Some people, maybe they feel guilty, or maybe there's
A few things happen.
Okay.
You get people that want to go to the next one if it's something that works with their schedule. And I then say, hey, share that article that I wrote on your social media. And at the end of every article, I put a link to the organization. You'll see they get donations. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. Wow. All this stuff kind of just brings up the word servant leadership to me. So how do you talk about that? I mean, you talk about characteristics and traits when you're coaching people. How important is something like that?
That's a term you hear over and over. I would be humbled to describe myself that way. I like going into operations and companies and just talking with the people, spending time with the management, and then learning what that story is or what their challenge is, and then talking to their people. And then saying, well, what are your goals? Well, what are you doing to achieve those? So that part is the coaching.
Yeah.
The other part is, well, it starts with, hey, you're looking to drive more success and more money. Well, let's make sure everybody knows your story. They can deliver it in a 30-second elevator pitch to share it. So everybody's different. It really depends on the leadership. You have to have someone that's forward thinking, because I've pitched the idea to other CEOs that are like, not a priority.
Yeah.
Well, when do you think it'll be a priority, and why? Well, I don't know. Just not something I'm into right now. Okay.
Until they have a huge crisis, and then they're like,
yeah,
man, I wish I would have listened to Corey.
Well, then they call me. And,
that's a whole other class.
Yeah, well, it's a whole
crisis management.
I was working with a guy recently, and he was like, I can't afford your training. I was like, well, you can't afford not to.
Yeah.
And then he was like, all right. I said, listen, I'm here to train you, and it's just once. You'll have the tools to be successful for when something happens. He called me 6 months later, and something happened. And he called. It's always like after 9 o'clock, always on like a Sunday night, and it's always that. And he was like, I realize now that this is going to be more than the most expensive lawyer. And I'm like, well, it's not that bad. But yeah, you could have been proactive. And then afterwards, they come in and they say, do the training, do this. And you're like, could have had all this in here.
Right. Do you feel that individuals need to have that as well?
Yeah.
Just, what do you feel the best thing that somebody what they can do to brand themselves? Let's say a CEO, CFO, to brand themselves. What are a couple things that they could do?
Know their why. Why do they do what they do, and why do they love it? So often you'll see, for example, you go to a chamber event or whatever it is, and someone stands up. Hi, I'm Steve Edwards from Premier Virtual. I did this, this, and this, and today I'm going to tell you about it. As opposed to, the world is now more challenging than ever. People are busier than ever. We give you the opportunity to hold virtual job fairs so you can connect with your tomorrow's employer on their terms. My name's Steve Edwards, and I'm changing the way you do jobs.
Look at that.
And I'm just ad-libbing that.
Right.
It's the idea of you gave me a hook. So know your why. Know what your story is. Figure out, I like to say we all have a gift. The key is not to betray your gift. My gift is compassion. I lead with compassion when I'm doing things. Yours may be humor. Yours may be sarcasm. Whatever it is, you find what your gift is, and that's what motivates you and makes you make certain decisions. Know your gift, know your why, and then just try to learn something new every day. I'm here with you guys today.
Yeah.
This is out of my comfort zone 110%, because I'm used to being the guy asking the questions. But I said, you know what? How am I going to grow if I don't do something?
Well, we love that you came here today and took time out of your busy schedule. And I think that you've given so much information, I think, to companies out there and to executives to look at their why. Because I think so many people they're like, hey, I'm going to work to make money. And I think a lot of people probably know, right, the tech world is not my passion, right? I just happen to fall into being a CEO of the tech thing. If I had my passion, it would be barbecue. That's my why, and everybody knows that.
And I've had your barbecue actually.
It's a
It's
damn
really
good one.
That's my passion, and but I look at my why is how can I take care of my family. What do I need to do, even though it's not something that I loved or that I understood. It was my bigger why, my bigger purpose that was out there. So, John, anything else? Any other questions that you got?
I loved it.
I got one last question. Right?
Sure.
I'm gonna go with this, and you may not be able to answer this, right? But this is
I'll do my best.
BS, so we're gonna go.
Hit him.
Have you ever? And I've asked this a couple times now, right? And,
Gloves off.
And right, especially with PR, because I love this. Have you ever had to fire a client, and why?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because I did not agree with their approach. I did not like the way they treated those people around them, and it would have been a very lucrative opportunity, and I just couldn't do it. I just didn't feel I was already working with a client in the same region, doing something with the same people we needed to do, and I felt it would have jeopardized that, even though this one was paying a lot more and it would have dragged on and it would have made a lot of money. I just did not like the CEO of that company, and the people around him were just intimidated, and you could tell they were bullied. And I came in, and I was glad I did, and I said to him, hey, I don't think I'm the right guy for you. And I was very polite. I came here out of respect to do it face-to-face as opposed to email, and he was very flippant with me and somewhat rude, and he's like, well, why are you still sitting here? Something like that.
Yeah.
I said, I'm still sitting here because of this, this, and this. And by the way, I'm going to give you 2 free pieces of advice. The name you chose is awful. Here's why. And,
Nice.
and here's the other thing. I wish you the best of luck in your endeavor. And good night and good luck.
Yeah.
And I felt good. And when I walked out, I just smiled at the receptionist, because I told her on the way in, that's what I was going to do. And she smiled back. And I was like, good luck to you.
You're gonna sleep good at night, and you're not gonna. Yeah.
It's not all about the money.
Yeah. To me,
Right?
that's
It's
Not
not
about, if you chase the money, you won't be happy.
Yeah, I think that's such a key. So many people chase that. And they're like, oh, I'll take this client even though I don't agree with them. I don't agree with them. I don't agree with anything, but I'm looking at the money. And I think if you go that way just with the money, guess what? Eventually, it's not going to work out.
It's your
gonna
reputation.
hurt your reputation. You took it out of my mouth. It's going to hurt your reputation in the long run. Sometimes you have to step away. I've said that to my sales team sometimes. I don't think that we should take that on the client. I think that this is a bad one. And I said one time I had a client, and this was here at Premier Virtual. I said, I don't think that you're a good client of us. And my sales team at first was a little taken back. And I'm like, it's not about the money. I'm like, look at the challenges up front and look at what they've done. This is not a good client for us. And sure enough, later on, all of a sudden, there was something that came out and just a terrible review. And we had all positive reviews, came out with a negative review. And I emailed her and I said, why would you say that? I said, I'm not asking you to take it off because that's your belief. But why would you say all of that, right? And I did the right thing for this company and everything. And she goes, I wanted the $25 gift card that I got, and you wanted a review? So I put my thoughts on there. And I was like, so you would rather put out all this negative stuff? She goes, yeah. She goes, you have all the positive reviews anyway that's out there, so who cares about my one? But she cared about the $25 gift card that she was getting from the review site.
What's the weeding through the BS moral of this whole thing?
Of that,
Yeah.
Sometimes you walk away earlier.
Yeah. I think, because we have the experience and you've been through taking on clients and you said you regretted it because in your gut you were like, I knew I shouldn't have done it. So it's hard to do, but if you really don't have a fit, you hear that a lot too. If we're a good fit, we'll work together. And they'll always work together. No. Mean it. If you're not a good fit,
say goodbye.
separate ways.
It's easier sometimes to part ways earlier then deal with challenges later.
Yeah, man, listen, I've run through too many red lights. I definitely weeded through that.
Yeah, exactly. So, Corey,
Red lights.
Yes.
we're back to our last question here, right?
Woo.
This is our game that we play all the time, right?
Sure.
John says he's leading 10-8, but he missed one, so he's down by 2, so we're even. But we won't get there. We'll weed through the BS of John's. I think, you know what I think you do, John? I think now I know why you're leading.
Okay.
Because you're the one doing the editing. So the ones that I won, you edited out. So now, because I'm not going back. Oh, yeah, exactly. This will all be edited out. So, Corey, we're going to play a little game here, right? It's
Sure.
2 truths and a lie, the old game. You're going to tell us 3 statements. 2 are true, 1's a lie. John and I have to try to guess which one's BS. And I'm interested about today, right? Because Corey's got very lines like I have.
Yeah.
He is a storyteller, a brander,
Oof, it's gonna be a tough one.
news anchor, Emmy nominated. Again, congratulations on that.
Yeah,
But
that was
you've
a
done,
while ago. Yeah.
You know, but you've done so many good things, and
I saw you on TV a lot. I was
Yeah.
not
That's
like
a nice head of hair, didn't it?
Yeah. But I was, I think, we met, just kind of briefly throughout some things, but you were hosting a panel one time that I was on, and just the way that you carried yourself and everything that you've done, love watching what you've done, love what you do with all these things, and I think our viewers will take a lot out of this. So I appreciate that. So
You gotta
let's
sign
get-
our wall and also let us know, Corey, so when we finish, how people can get in touch with you.
Sure.
Yeah. If you want to grab one of those markers, so when you're telling us these 3 little things, if you want to sign that in here and tell us your 3 things, and we got to
My
get
3 things. Let's see. I've been skydiving.
Okay.
I've won a Dancing with the Stars competition.
Ooh,
And I've ridden on a camel.
ridden on a what?
On a camel.
With 1 hump or 2?
2.
Oh, wait. Think about that. Camel with 2 humps.
They had a camel at the Miami Zoo this weekend. We were there. I wasn't.
1 hump or 2?
They had 2.
Okay.
I wasn't impressed with the Miami Zoo though. I like Palm Beach Zoo much better.
Skydiving. I remember Dancing with the Stars, Corey. But I don't know about the golden disco ball.
I got mine. I'm ready.
Um,
You ready?
I am ready.
Skydiving, I think, is BS. I think you've won, and I think you wrote it.
I think BS is the Dancing with the Stars. I think you went far, but I don't remember.
Okay. Am I supposed to tell who's right?
Yep.
Steve nailed it.
Oh, there we go. He went right to skydiving. You know
I
why?
remember him on dancing, but I remember the win.
So do you know why he went skydiving?
No.
He went first with it. Everybody else thinks and tries to go last with the BS.
I've been
I was like,
watching-
he's gonna try to trick us.
I thought
See, I
about that
went
too.
that.
You know?
I thought about that too.
I went
that's right.
first with it. I was like, I'll throw that out.
Yeah, he was confident, right? I was like, he's trying to trick us right there.
I wrote it
There you
down.
go.
Steve won.
You
But
got
he's
that?
still
You
down
got
by
that?
110-9.
So Corey, I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you. It
me,
was so
man.
much
Appreciate
fun.
it.
It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
All right.
This has really been a pleasure. Thanks, Bob.
Again, thanks to all of our sponsors, Leadership Books, the Owl Lab, Premier Virtual, and Think Big websites.
Oh, if you want to reach me, by the way,
Yes, if you want to reach Corey, you can reach him at
CS, Corey Saban, MediaWorks.com, CSMediaWorks.com, or find me on LinkedIn, Corey, C-O-R-E-Y, and Saban, like the Alabama coach.
All right. Thank you. Are you related?
No.
No relation? Okay. All right, Corey, thank you again. We'll see y'all next time on Weeding Through the BS.
See you guys.